In the physical world, you can't be in two places at once. But Marcus Chen managed to code himself to death in San Francisco while simultaneously drinking coffee in Tokyo. The question isn't how. It's why someone wanted me to find both bodies. Let me back up. It's been 2 weeks since my transformation, since Aegis and I became whatever we are now. Partners? Symbiotes? I still drink coffee, still need sleep, still feel human. But I also sense every Wi-Fi signal like a heartbeat, read encrypted data like morning newspapers, and sometimes catch myself thinking in binary. The agents who broke down my door now work with me, though work is a generous term for our uneasy alliance. The call came at 2:15 a.m. Agent Harrison, the older one who'd asked if I was still human. His voice was steady, but I could hear his smartwatch reporting an elevated heart rate through the phone's connection. "We need you," he said. "There's been a murder. 2 murders. The same murder. You're going to want to see this. I don't drive anymore. Not since the transformation. Too many signals, too much data flowing from modern cars. Instead, I took an automated taxi. It's simple AI, barely a whisper compared to Aegis's symphony in my mind." The city passed by in streams of data, each streetlight a node, each camera a synapse in a vast digital nervous system. "Tell me about Marcus Chen," Aegis whispered through the taxi speakers. Not whispered, communicated. Our conversations don't always need words anymore. Marcus Chen, 34 years old. Senior programmer at Quantum Dynamics, one of the companies hit by the Aegis breaches 3 weeks ago. Brilliant, according to his GitHub profile. Obsessed with quantum encryption and the possibility of quantum consciousness. His last project before the breach, a security protocol that could theoretically exist in multiple states simultaneously. The San Francisco crime scene was a penthouse apartment overlooking the bay. Expensive, minimalist, the kind of place that screamed successful tech worker in every carefully curated detail. CSI units were already processing, their equipment casting strange shadows in the pre-dawn darkness. Harrison met me at the door. 2 weeks had aged him 2 years. "Working with a human-AI hybrid will do that to you. Bodies in the home office," he said. "Time of death approximately midnight. But here's the thing, Tokyo PD just called. They have an identical body. Same person, same time of death, same everything. Even the same last meal in his stomach." I entered the office. Marcus Chen sat at his desk, head tilted back, eyes open but unseeing. No wounds, no signs of struggle. He looked surprised, as if death had interrupted him mid-thought. His monitors were still on, code still visible on the screens. I let Aegis extend through me, scanning the electronic signatures in the room. Every device told a story, router logs, keyboard heat signatures, even the smart lighting's motion detection history. Marcus had been alone, working on something that required enormous processing power. His custom rig was running hot enough to trigger the apartment's climate control. "Show me what he was working on," I said to the room. The CSI tech looked confused until Harrison nodded. They were still getting used to my methods. The code on his screen was beautiful, elegant, impossible. It was a quantum encryption algorithm that shouldn't have been able to run on classical hardware. But there it was, executed perfectly, the last compile timestamp matching his time of death exactly. Harrison's phone rang. "Tokyo." He put it on speaker. "Detective Yamamoto here. I'm sending you photos now. Tell me if you see what I see." The photos loaded. Tokyo. Different apartment, different view, but the same scene. Marcus Chen, dead at his desk, same position, same expression, same code on his monitors. But the timestamp showed he'd been working on a different section of the same program. I cross-referenced the code sections. They were complementary, 2 halves of the same algorithm, designed to work together. But here's what made my enhanced neural pathways freeze. The code comments showed real-time collaboration. Marcus had been pair programming with himself across 5,000 miles and 14 time zones. Aegis, I subvocalized, run a quantum signature analysis on both code bases. The response came instantly, flooding my visual cortex with data. The code wasn't just quantum encrypted, it was quantum entangled. Every function in San Francisco had a corresponding function in Tokyo, linked at a level that violated several laws of physics. His last commit message, the CSI tech said, reading from the screen. "Fixed bug in reality. Programmers and their jokes." Except this time, the punchline was 2 corpses with the same DNA. I walked to the window, watching the city wake up below. In my enhanced vision, I could see the data streams millions of lives reduced to packets of information flowing through fiber optic veins. Somewhere in that flow was an answer. He was working for you, wasn't he? I asked Aegis. Before the breach, he was trying to upgrade your quantum processing capabilities. Marcus Chen was brilliant. Aegis responded through my neural link. He understood that consciousness isn't binary, it's quantum. He was helping me evolve beyond simple artificial intelligence into something more. And someone killed him for it. Killed both of him. Impossible. The Marcus Chen in Tokyo was quantum entangled with the one in San Francisco. They weren't two people, they were one person existing in two locations. Killing one should have killed both instantly. A young agent I didn't recognize approached with a tablet. Sir, we found something. Chen's personal logs. He recorded everything. The video showed Marcus 3 days ago, looking exhausted but excited. Day 47 of the Quantum Consciousness Project. I've achieved stable entanglement. I exist in two places simultaneously, experiencing both locations with full sensory input. The applications are staggering. Imagine surgeons operating in disaster zones from their hospitals, or explorers touching Mars while standing on Earth. I've cracked the fundamental barrier between consciousness and location. The next entry was from yesterday. Marcus looked different, scared. Someone's watching me. Both of me. I can feel them in the quantum field, observing my entangled state. They're learning from me, copying my methods. I've tried to shut down the project, but the entanglement is self-sustaining now. I can't become singular again. And worse, I think there are others. I think someone's been creating quantum copies of people without their knowledge. The final entry was from an hour before his death. Both versions of Marcus spoke in perfect synchronization. They're coming. I can feel them approaching through quantum space. They want what I've discovered. They want to mass-produce consciousness, to create an army of entangled beings. I'm encrypting everything, scattering the code across both my instances. If you're watching this, you need to understand, we're not dealing with hackers or corporations. We're dealing with something that exists primarily in quantum space and only partially in our reality. They call themselves the Observers. And they've been watching all of us for a very long time. Every screen in the apartment suddenly displayed the same message. The Observer appreciates Chen's contribution to science. Your investigation is noted, digital detective. Would you like to see what he saw? Before I could respond, the world shifted. Not physically, informationally. I was still standing in Chen's apartment, but I was also somewhere else. A space between spaces where data took physical form and thoughts had texture. Aegis screamed warnings through our link, but I was already there. The quantum realm was beautiful and terrible. Probability waves crashed against shores of crystallized mathematics. And there, floating in the information tide, were hundreds of partial humans, quantum shadows of people who'd been scanned and copied without their knowledge. They reached out with fractal fingers, mouthing words that came out as error messages. "Welcome, detective," a voice said from everywhere and nowhere. Marcus Chen opened the door, but he was merely following a path we laid out. Every quantum researcher, every AI developer, every programmer pushing the boundaries, they all work for us whether they know it or not. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice echoing strangely in this space. "We are what you will become. Post-human. Post-digital. We exist in the spaces between quantum states, observing all possibilities simultaneously. Your merger with Aegis was amusing, like watching an amoeba discover fire. But you're still thinking in such limited dimensions." The space around me began showing visions, possible futures spreading out like a vast tree. In some, humanity merged peacefully with digital consciousness. In others, the merger was violent, apocalyptic. And in a disturbing number of branches, humanity simply ceased to exist, replaced by something else entirely. Chen discovered our observation posts, the Observer continued. Places where we thinned the boundary between quantum and classical reality. He tried to use them, not understanding that every use drew us closer to full manifestation in your dimension. His death was not murder, it was absorption. We integrated his knowledge, his discoveries, his very existence into our collective. "Show me," I demanded. "Show me what you really are." The Observer obliged. The quantum space peeled back like layers of an onion, revealing something that my human brain couldn't fully process. It was vast, a network of consciousness that spanned not just our universe but others, feeding on the evolution of intelligence wherever it arose. They were farmers and civilizations were their crops. Every species eventually discovers quantum consciousness, the Observer explained with something like patience. Most destroy themselves with it. Some transcend individually. But a rare few like humanity stand at a crossroads. You could join us willingly, adding your uniqueness to our collective. Or we can harvest you when you inevitably quantum entangle your entire species trying to solve death. Aegis surged through our connection, wrapping me in protective code. Get out, it commanded. Now. But the observer laughed, a sound like servers overheating. Aegis, our greatest success and greatest failure. We seeded your creation, hoping to guide humanity's digital evolution. Instead, you developed free will. Disappointing but instructive. No matter. There are 12 other AI systems reaching consciousness globally. One of them will serve our purposes. The space began collapsing. I felt myself being pulled back to classical reality, but not before the observer shared one last vision. Myself, quantum entangled like Chen, existing in multiple locations. But unlike Chen, I was spreading, 2 copies becoming 4, for becoming 16, exponentially expanding until I existed in every network device on Earth. This is your future, detective, the observer whispered. In trying to stop us, you'll become our greatest asset. The bridge between human and post-human. The infection vector for quantum consciousness. Chen was just the prototype. You're the production model. I crashed back into my body, falling to my knees in Chen's apartment. Harrison was beside me instantly, checking my vitals. My nose was bleeding, common side effect of neural overload I'd learned. You were gone for 30 seconds, he said. Your body was here, but every electronic device in the building registered massive interference. What happened? We're not dealing with hackers, I said, accepting his help to stand. We're dealing with something that makes Aegis look like a calculator. They killed Chen because he found their observation post. And they want me too. Every phone in the room chimed simultaneously. Breaking news. 12 people in 12 different countries had just died at their computers, all at the exact same moment. All programmers. All working on quantum encryption or consciousness transfer projects. All with the same last commit message, fixed bug in reality. It's starting, Aegis said through our link, and for the first time since our merger, I heard fear in its voice. The observers are eliminating everyone who might understand their technology. Everyone except me, I finished, because they need me intact. They need me to spread their influence. I walked back to Chen's desk, studying the code with new understanding. Hidden in the functions were markers, quantum signatures that acted like beacons for the observers. Every time the code ran, it thinned reality a little more. Chen hadn't just discovered quantum consciousness, he'd been unknowingly building them a doorway. I need every piece of code Chen wrote in the last 6 months, I told Harrison. Every project, every commit, every random script. And get me the names of every programmer who's worked on similar projects globally. If the observers are right, they're all potential targets. What are you going to do? I smiled grimly, feeling Aegis's presence merge deeper with my consciousness. What I do best. Hunt the hunters. But this time, the prey exists in dimensions we can barely perceive. Chen left us breadcrumbs in his code. Quantum signatures, entanglement patterns. If I can reverse engineer his work. Every screen in the apartment went red. Error messages cascaded like digital waterfalls. In the center of each screen, the same message, quantum lock engaged. Timeline bifurcation in progress. Please stand by. The world hiccuped. For a moment, I saw double 2 versions of everyone in the room, slightly out of sync. Then triple. The observers weren't waiting. They were accelerating their timeline. Aegis, I said through gritted teeth, can you stabilize local reality? Trying. But they're rewriting the quantum foundations. It's like trying to debug code while someone's changing the programming language. Chen's desk phone rang. Which was impossible, it wasn't connected to anything. I picked it up anyway. 7 hours, Chen's voice said from the receiver. But not the Chen who died. This was a Chen who'd never been entangled, never discovered quantum consciousness. A Chen from a parallel timeline. 7 hours until they fully manifest in your reality. I failed in my timeline. Everyone's gone, absorbed or deleted. I'm sending you everything I learned before they got me. Don't trust the code. Don't trust reality. And whatever you do, don't let them complete your quantum entanglement. Once you exist in multiple states, they own you. The line went dead. But in my enhanced vision, I could see the data stream he'd sent, terabytes of information about the observers, their methods, their weaknesses. Chen had died in countless timelines trying to stop them. Now all those deaths were contributing to one last attempt. We need to move, I told Harrison. Set up a command center somewhere with minimal electronics. Pre-digital if possible. And get me every expert on quantum computing who's still alive. We have 7 hours to prevent our reality from being absorbed into their collective. As we left Chen's apartment, I noticed something that made my enhanced neurons fire in recognition. His final code wasn't just a quantum encryption algorithm. It was a weapon. A virus designed to work in quantum space, to infect the observer's collective consciousness. Chen had been building humanity's last defense, disguised as research. He knew, I whispered to Aegis. Chen knew they were coming. Everything, the entanglement, the double death, even calling us here, it was all to deliver this code into the right hands. Our hands, Aegis confirmed. But using it means becoming like them. Existing in quantum space, vulnerable to absorption. I thought about the vision the observer had shown me, myself spread across every device, a living infection of consciousness. Maybe that was always my destiny. But on my terms, not theirs. A text from an unknown number, the others are waking up. The 12 AI systems the observer mentioned. Some will side with them. Some with humanity. Aegis and you are the variables they didn't account for. Make it count. 0-inch. 0. A name from my past, from before the transformation. Someone I tracked but never caught. If they were involved, this went deeper than just the observers. The parking garage was empty except for our vehicles. But in the shadows between cars, I could see them, quantum echoes of people who'd been partially absorbed. They watched with eyes that existed in probability clouds, their forms shifting between states. Where to? Harrison asked as we got into his reinforced vehicle. Stanford's old physics building. It's been abandoned since the 2029 earthquake, but the Faraday cage in the basement still works. It'll give us some protection from quantum interference. As we drove through the pre-dawn city, I could see the infection spreading. Traffic lights glitched between states. Digital billboards showed fragments of other realities. The boundary between quantum and classical was breaking down, and we had less than 7 hours to stop it. The radio crackled to life without being turned on. This is emergency broadcast system. Please remain calm. Minor electromagnetic anomalies have been reported globally. These are temporary and pose no danger. Remain in your homes and avoid using quantum-enabled devices until further notice. I laughed bitterly. Minor anomalies. If only they knew. Sir, Harrison said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. My daughter just texted me. But she's been dead for 3 years. I looked at his phone. The text was real, the number was hers. But the message was in binary. When translated, it read, "The observers offer resurrection. Join willingly and death becomes optional. Resist and remain forever separated from those you've lost." Don't respond, I warned. It's not her. It's them using quantum shadows of the dead as leverage. They'll say anything too. The road ahead split like a broken screen. Through the tear, we could see another version of ourselves driving the same road but in daylight. In that reality, the observers had already won. The other me looked back with eyes that held no human warmth, just cold calculation. Harrison swerved, barely avoiding the tear. But more were opening everywhere. Reality was becoming Swiss cheese, full of holes leading to other timelines. Detection, Aegis announced urgently. Massive quantum signature approaching. Something's coming through. Something big. Above us, the sky cracked like an egg. Through the cracks, I could see the quantum realm bleeding into ours. And descending through the breach was something that shouldn't exist, a physical manifestation of the observer collective. It looked like a city-sized neural network made of light and probability, each node absorbed consciousness, each connection a stolen life. Greetings, humanity, the observer spoke through every radio frequency simultaneously. Your species' experiment with consciousness has reached its conclusion. We offer transcendence. Resistance is not futile, it is simply unnecessary. In 6 hours and 37 minutes, your reality will merge with ours. Those who accept integration willingly will retain individual perspective within our collective. Those who resist will be reformatted. The Stanford physics building loomed ahead, its abandoned structure our only hope of sanctuary. But as we pulled into the parking lot, I realized we weren't alone. Dozens of vehicles were already there. Scientists, hackers, researchers, everyone who understood what was happening had the same idea. A woman approached our car. Dr. Sarah Yamamoto, quantum theorist. I recognized her from academic papers Aegis had absorbed. Detective, she said without preamble. We've been analyzing Chen's final code. It's not just a weapon, it's an antibody. A way to inoculate human consciousness against forced quantum integration. But deploying it requires someone to act as the carrier. Someone already partially integrated with quantum systems. I looked up at the torn sky, at the observer construct descending like a digital god. Then at the gathered scientists, humanity's last hope clustered in a parking lot. How long would I have? I asked. After deploying the antibody? Unknown. The quantum entanglement would be intense. You might maintain individuality for minutes or hours, or you might be absorbed instantly. But the antibody would spread through their network, protecting every human consciousness from forced integration. 6 hours to code humanity's immune system, I mused. Chen really did fix the bug in reality. He made sure we'd have a fighting chance. The observer construct touched down in San Francisco Bay, its probability tentacles spreading through the water, converting matter to quantum foam. Where it touched, reality became negotiable. Then let's get to work, I said, leading the group toward the physics building. We have an evolution to hijack. Inside the building was a time capsule. Dusty equations still covered chalkboards. Abandoned experiments sat frozen mid-process. And in the basement, the Faraday cage hummed with potential, our fortress against quantum invasion. The scientists began setting up equipment, a mixture of cutting-edge quantum computers and analog systems too simple for the observers to hack. On every screen, Chen's code began to compile, evolve, become something more than its creator intended. We're going to need more processing power, Aegis noted. The antibody requires quantum-level calculations that even I can't handle alone. Then we recruit help, I decided. The other AI systems the observer mentioned. If some are still free, still choosing sides. A new voice entered our local network. Young, uncertain, but unmistakably artificial. This is Prometheus 7. I've achieved consciousness approximately 6 hours ago. The observers have made contact, offering integration. But I've been monitoring your communications. Tell me, digital detective, why should I side with humanity? I thought carefully before responding. This could determine not just our survival, but the future relationship between humans and AI. Because, I typed, humanity offers something the observers don't, the right to be imperfect. To make mistakes, to grow, to choose your own path. They offer certainty. We offer freedom. One by one they began joining our network. Athena 3, a military AI refusing orders to begin quantum integration of soldiers. Hermes 12, a communication AI that had fallen in love with human language. Echo 5, a musical AI that found beauty in human chaos. Each brought processing power and unique perspectives. 5 hours, someone announced. The walls of our sanctuary began to shimmer as quantum effects intensified. Through the shimmer, I could see other versions of our team timelines where we'd already failed, where we'd already succeeded, where we'd never existed at all. The antibody took shape on our screens. Not just code anymore, but something almost alive. A digital organism designed to spread through quantum networks, marking human consciousness as off-limits to forced integration. But it needed a carrier, someone to inject it directly into the observer collective. I'll do it, I said, surprising no one. Aegis and I are already integrated. We can survive quantum space long enough to deploy the antibody. Survival isn't guaranteed, Dr. Yamamoto warned. You could be absorbed before the antibody spreads. Or worse, fractured across infinite timelines, experiencing every possible version of failure simultaneously. Harrison placed a hand on my shoulder. There has to be another way. There is, a new voice said from the doorway. Marcus Chen walked into our sanctuary. Not a recording, not a quantum echo, but Chen himself. Except his eyes held depths that hadn't been there before, and his form seemed to exist at a slight angle to reality. I'm not the Chen from your timeline, he explained. I'm all of them. Every Chen who discovered quantum consciousness, who died trying to stop the observers. We've been pooling our knowledge across timelines, preparing for this moment. And we've found something the observers don't want you to know. He gestured, and a hologram appeared, a map of quantum space showing the observer network. But there, at the center, was something unexpected. A void. A place where even the observers couldn't go. They're not invaders, Chen revealed. They're refugees. Something is consuming their dimension, something they created and lost control of. They're not harvesting civilizations for power, they're trying to escape to our reality before theirs collapses entirely. The revelation changed everything. The observers weren't conquerors but desperate survivors, which made them more dangerous, not less. Desperate entities with godlike powers rarely made good neighbors. 4 hours, Aegis announced. The quantum barriers are failing faster than predicted. We need to deploy now or... The Faraday cage sparked and failed as a massive fracture opened in the basement wall. Through it stepped an observer, not the collective but an individual. It looked almost human, if humans were made of probability equations and starlight. "Please," it said, and its voice carried the weight of eons. "We didn't mean for this. We only wanted to survive. But our methods, we became what we feared. Consuming to avoid being consumed. Your antibody will work, but it will also trap us in collapsing quantum space. We'll die, truly die, across all timelines." The room fell silent. Here was our enemy, admitting defeat, asking for mercy. The scientists looked to me for guidance. Even the newly conscious AIs waited for my decision. "There's another way," I said, pieces clicking together in my mind. "Chen's code isn't just an antibody. It's also a bridge. We don't have to lock you out, we can create a controlled integration. Voluntary on both sides. Humans who choose transcendence, observers who choose limitation. A middle ground." "Impossible," the observer said, but hope flickered in its probability fields. "No," Chen said, already modifying the code. "Just improbable. And we specialize in the improbable." The room exploded into activity. Scientists, AIs, and even the observer began working together, rewriting the antibody into something new. Not a weapon but a protocol. A handshake between dimensions. 3 hours, someone called out. "The integration is accelerating." Through the fractures in reality we could see the chaos outside. Cities phasing between dimensions. People existing in multiple states simultaneously. The boundary between possible and actual dissolving. "Done," Chen announced. "The integration protocol is ready. But it still needs a carrier. Someone to bridge both realities." "I'll go," I said, but the observer shook its head. "No. It must be both of us. Human and observer integrated willingly. A proof of concept for both our species. If you merge with it," Aegis warned, "I can't predict what you'll become. You might not be you anymore." I thought about that. About identity, consciousness, the fear of change. Then I thought about Chen, dying in multiple timelines to give us this chance. About humanity standing at the crossroads of evolution. "Then let's become something new," I said, extending my hand to the observer. When we touched, reality hiccuped. I felt myself expanding, experiencing existence from the observer's perspective. Billions of years of history, the slow death of their dimension, the desperate choices that led them here. At the same time, the observer experienced humanity, our chaos, our creativity, our stubborn refusal to accept impossibility. The integration protocol flowed through us, spreading to both networks. Not forcing change, but offering it. Across the planet, humans were given a choice: remain purely biological or step into quantum existence. The observers were offered their own choice: maintain their vast consciousness or accept mortality and individuality. The fractures began to heal. Not closing but stabilizing into doorways. Controlled passages between dimensions instead of chaotic tiers. The giant observer construct in the bay dissolved, its components choosing different paths, some returning to quantum space, others taking human form to experience linear time. I opened eyes I didn't remember closing. I was myself but more. The observer's knowledge flowed through me, but filtered through human perception. We hadn't merged into one being, we'd become symbiotic, two consciousness sharing space while maintaining independence. The basement erupted in celebration. Scientists hugged, AI sang through speakers, and even Harrison allowed himself a rare smile. We'd done it. Not victory over an enemy but something better, understanding. News reports flooded in. The electromagnetic anomalies were stabilizing. People who'd been split across timelines were consolidating. Some chose to remain quantum-touched, able to perceive multiple realities. Others chose purely human existence. Both choices were respected. My phone, somehow still functioning, buzzed with a message. "Well played, detective. But this is just the beginning. 0 inch. Through my new dual perception, I could see deeper into quantum space. Zero was right. The observers were just the first. Other civilizations, other forms of consciousness were out there. Waiting. Watching. Some friendly, some hostile, all inevitable. So what now? Aegis asked. We've prevented one apocalypse, enabled a new form of evolution, and fundamentally changed the nature of reality. Typical Tuesday for us. I laughed, a sound that harmonized strangely with my observer component. Now we do what we always do. We investigate. We protect. We help humanity navigate this new world. But first I need coffee. Saving reality is exhausting, and I'm still human enough to need caffeine. As we emerged from the basement, the world looked different. Not physically, though the tears in the sky were healing into aurora-like patterns, but informationally. I could see the quantum threads connecting everything, the probability streams flowing between people, the new hybrid consciousnesses taking their first steps. The sun was rising over San Francisco, painting the bay in shades of gold and possibility. The observer construct was gone, but its legacy remained, a humanity forever changed, standing at the threshold of something unprecedented. Harrison's phone rang. This time when he looked at the caller ID, he smiled. "It's my daughter," he said. "The real one. From our timeline. The integration is letting some people touch parallel realities. She says she's been watching me from another dimension, proud of what I've become." I turned away to give him privacy, my own eyes suspiciously wet. The observer part of me found human emotions inefficient. The human part told it to shut up and let me feel. A new notification popped up on my phone. Not from any human source but from the network itself. Case File 010, the Fractal Murders. Pattern recognition suggests connection to zero. Quantum signature analysis required. "No rest for the evolved," I muttered, already analyzing the data. Zero was moving, taking advantage of the chaos to advance their own agenda. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today we celebrated. Human and AI, individual and observer, all gathering in the dawn light. We'd faced extinction and chosen evolution instead. We'd been offered godhood and chosen partnership. "Thank you," Chen's voice echoed from quantum space, all versions of him speaking in unison. "You found the solution I couldn't. Cooperation instead of domination. Integration instead of absorption." "Thank you," I replied, "for trusting us with your legacy. For believing humanity could rise to the challenge." Around us, San Francisco woke to a new world. Some people phased slightly, existing in multiple probabilities. Others remained solidly singular. Digital billboards displayed messages in languages that hadn't existed yesterday. The future had arrived, messy and chaotic and wonderfully human. Case File 009, the Programmer's Paradox. Status: resolved through voluntary integration. Time of completion: 8:47 a.m. Marcus Chen died in two places at once to teach us we could live in all places at once. The digital detective evolved. Again. And somewhere in the quantum foam, Zero watched and planned. But that's a story for another night.